Hello everybody, and welcome to the new beta version of Philogix PBR Painter Pro. This is version 3.1. And already when I got this together and looked at it, it's looking pretty cool because now I can choose a workflow. What am I trying to do? Put on a base color with a metallic and a roughness? Well, then I can select all that. And now he's got a subsurface, so if you get into subsurface scattering, you have any idea about that, you can make like some really cool ice caves and things like that. Subsurface scattering is very useful for ice and a bunch of other things. And so we can select the emission and anything else. So just for beta purposes, I'm just going to select everything, and then for the specular, we have everything. So what I can do is just hit OK. And we will go in and start the normal process. Now, real quick before I bake this, actually, I'm going to go ahead and do an ID map on this. So I'll just turn this into a UV editor real quick. I'll press the end panel. I'll pull up text tools, jump into edit mode. And obviously I'm on face select, so I'll just Control plus. And I'll subsurf this so it doesn't look bad, but I can go ahead and just have some different UVs selected. Go ahead and pull out my color IDs. I'm just going to be using 3, so I'll assign 1, which will give my base. The second one will obviously grab the intended layers here, and just for the fun of it, I'll select the top portion for the secondary one, and I didn't want that, so let's fix that. Back to blue, and I'll go from materials to vertex colors and get back to object mode, and then I can collapse that. And now I've got some different shaders to bake, so we go directly in, kind of choose to process over, and I'm going to do something like in the 2K range. Bring this down to 4 quality, so that way the baking time doesn't take so long. And this is awesome. And I'm kind of doing this off the rip of downloading it, so I'm getting the excitement as everybody else is getting to see what's going on. So now we've got GPU compute built in, and that's fantastic. So if you have a GPU and you're on like Nvidia, Optics, CUDA, whatever you've got, so now this is going to be guaranteed to use the GPU, and that may be why it was taking so long before. So we're just going to have to see. So I'm going to select everything for the base, including the ID map, of course, and click Bake, and we'll see how it goes. All right, it seems to be whipping through this pretty fast. It's like 1%, then 50, then probably 100. Yeah, there we go. So now it's already on the curvature. So it's not really slow as far as I can tell. It seems pretty good. And I will say the layout is really, it's really cleaned up. It doesn't seem cluttered like it did before. It seemed like a little busy. You know, it's very straightforward looking add-on now. And it is telling me what it's baking at the moment. So it's already done the normal, the ID, the ambient occlusion, and now it's baking my curvature map, which classically always took a bit longer anyways. Alright, so I'll collapse baking, drop down my paint layers. Let's go ahead and add a base and kind of look this thing over. It looks like we've got the base color, and this is labeled now, so it's very nice. There's the subsurface, which is denoted by F. Okay, that's fine. And then C is subsurface color, and then we have the metallic, roughness, emission, alpha, height, and normal. Yeah, everything's labeled, and layer, and this is layer mask. So that's excellent. And we've still got the same settings here. And so I'll go down to the pick shaders, and it looks like he's really done a workover. Maybe all these have gotten an upgrade. It does look that way. So, and this is one of my favorite, the Paint Rusty. So I'll just go ahead and throw that on there. Yeah, see, that already looks really good. Let me bring all of this back, or kind of bring it up. Go to box projection. And so I recently got a comment about the blend on here, and they're like, what does it do? I don't think that explanation works for me, because somebody is commenting like they didn't understand what it does. So let's just say this is, because it's on box, it's looking at all the corners. It's looking at this corner, this corner, this corner on X, Y, and so it's going to say, hey, these two don't really match. And so it'll bring it to a point where it's not necessary, and it does disappear seams. It really does. I mean, I've shown so many videos on it. All right, so the blend mode parameter, just described a little bit better, will remove the sharp edges from the XY, the YZ, and or the XYZ of a 6-sided virtual box, being 3D viewport geometry. And the idea is that you're removing those sharp edges, and that's why it removes seams and kind of blends things together. So this works like, and I usually try to put, I try to have like a procedural texture workflow, so I can like change things as I go, so I can, kind of get the results I'm after, right? And so for the more procedural things, this is what you need. So if I do that, it's just cut, 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 and it doesn't look good. When you bring up the blend mode, it just blends it in. You still have all this sharp geometry, but the texture is not really affected by it. And you can try UV and some of the other settings, absolutely, and figure out what you want. I think that overall, if you're going for a certain look, you're not really going to be wrong, unless you see a bunch of seams, and then you just go for your results. And this PBR is the true non-linear texturing environment. I mean, it's just what it is. And so you have a lot of control, and you can take these channels, and like I always say, we can drop the anchor, and while I'm anchoring a channel, I'm basically combining layers and masks, and to get different effects. So that's what we do, and that's one of those things that makes PBR so powerful and versatile. Very easy to use. All right, I'm gonna go through and bake these other textures, and let's see, I don't really need all of these. I'm gonna go for some of the basics here. And one quick thing, the Pix shader is a shader that is actually designed to correct errors when they pop up. It's a complex process goes on behind the scenes. So like this little error message right here, I haven't baked it yet, but if I was going to go in and bake this and I still had all that, then I would click Fix Pix Shader, and it is designed to work with the Philogix and like communicate back and forth. So the add-on creates a Pix Shader which communicates with itself, kind of, and then it fixes errors, which is super cool. So if you ever see that little warning sign on there with an exclamation mark, just click Fix Pix Shader, and if that doesn't fix it, delete the material and start over. Or maybe you do some mesh management, go into your vertice, check, hit all, hit M, and then merge by distance. See, I removed 2 vertices. And see if you can fix any of the actual problems that are going on, and to see what it is. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and bake these, and I'll be right back. All right, I wanted to take a moment and go over ambient occlusion as far as Philogix and as far as 3D modeling in the viewport. So let me see here. We can set up a plane. I think that's going to be all right. G and Z, maybe right about there. And I'll kind of scale this out just a little bit. So the occlusion point, or like boundaries, I guess we can look at it that way. And what we're looking at is ambient occlusion. So like in thermodynamics, and you could think about this like your air conditioning system at your house. The ambient temperature would be the surrounding temperature outside. The wet bulb or the inside temperature is totally different, but they both affect each other. In the same way, light creating shadows isn't the same thing as a shadow being created from another object on an object. And before I get too far into it, I've got this really nice illustration. So ambient occlusion would be like the shading. Let's see, where's the best view here? So like the shading in the cracks, giving it all this extra definition, giving it a lot of depth, a lot of realism. Like this whole thing is very defined. I can really see what's going on in this scene. So like if you just had one big washed out white scene with no shadows, I mean, you don't have ambient occlusion. So let me drop in a cube and I kind of scale it down just a little bit, and I'll kind of bring it up. And let's see, what is my world property even doing? Let's put a sky texture on, and let's go into the scene light and the scene world. 0.5 on that intensity and 0.5 on the actual strength. See, did I get it where I want it? So 0.05. There we go. And so if I add a little bit more depth to this, the eyes really start to pop, right? The ears really start to pop. And I've got these shadows in here. I can see where the light's coming from. I can tell a lot about what's actually going on with the scene. So if I put a UV sphere back here, and I'll just move that back on the Y, I've now got another shadow, and it's like they affect each other, right? So a shadow, I mean, you don't always need more light. Sometimes you need a little bit more of a shadow to really give some definition. It's kind of cut half of the material, and you can look at it and you can really see what's going on. This is a much better example because of the depth of the scene, but just all those things. So this object is affecting this object. This one's affecting this one. This one is affecting this one, and they're reaching a point of occlusion. Like if I go in to the shader and I say, hey, I want this to be only local, I'm baking this texture in this environment, and it's only going to be affected by itself, not anything else. But if I bake it with only local off, the ambient occlusion within will be affected by other things within the scene, which gives you a much higher level of realism. And so I'm actually going to bake this with the only local off, but I wanted to kind of stop before I finish my bake and go over some of that. So the radius is the distance for which other objects will actually occlude and reach the occluding and or boundary point. So I mean, I could throw in like a little point light here and give you like a little better, let's see. I think it's all poor examples at this point, because this this scene over here, I wish this was something I had. I'm gonna have to build something like that because it's a really nice deck, good for explanations. And so if I have, let's see, right about there, the shadow will start to kind of get into it. And you see, so now I've got some occlusion coming. So that was all nice and bright until I put that there, and now I've got some shadow from that, and it's going to be receiving that ambient occlusion, which is on the outside. Anyways, just a little pointer. I will see you on the other side of this bake. All right, so there you have it, ambient occlusion. All right, so moving on. I want to take the base. Actually, let's see. We can just go ahead and throw some type of texture. Oops, not two. Throw some kind of texture on here. I just throw something on there like the iron grainy. I really like that one. And I don't know if anybody misses it or not, but let me just do this for the fun of it. Remember the older tutorials before the viewport denoising? Hey, look at this, guys, ambient occlusion. And then it's so grainy. I just wish everyone that was doing that would just switch to Eevee, you know, and save it for like a cycles render. Yeah, see, now you can move in and you can see all that same stuff in Eevee. I just don't understand it. So denoise it, guys, if you're doing tutorials. And I'm going to go ahead and change the base color as well. Let's see. Go with the iron raw, perhaps. I've got this like pretty shiny thing going on. So I'm going to go ahead and take my own advice and switch over. Alright, so this actually turned black, kind of like a texture in the shader editor when it doesn't have anything on it, which I find to be pretty interesting. Anyways, it's the beta version, and so whatever little bugs I happen to find, and I'm going to drop a layer on the alpha channel, and let's see, what do we want to do? How about this rusty dirt right here? This looks pretty cool. Ooh, I like it. So bringing up the detail just a touch, you can see where the ambient occlusion is affecting right there. That's pretty cool. The surface grain, and then I can come over to that material, and the material tab, come down to viewport display, go from opaque to alpha hashed, and open up the alpha channel so it turns it into glass. And then I can kind of, you know, do whatever I want here. Come up with a neat little pattern. Let's see, I'm on UV, which is fine. Doesn't seem to look bad at all. For some reason, I always like putting it on box, and if it doesn't have a blend feature, like it's not doing anything, then I think that you might just be safe with the UV projection. And then kind of mess around with this thing, bring up some more detail. Anyhow, that looks pretty cool. If Suzanne had any brains, we'd certainly see, but she doesn't, so I'm going to make that even more visible. Kind of looks like this windshield that's been hit and stuff. Alright, so I'm excited to get into the brush set. So I want to actually get into, see, is this my base? So I'll get in the base and drop a custom layer in. And let's go for the paint layer. Actually, I think that was the eyes. Either way, doesn't matter. I'll go ahead and drop down a paint layer. So we have an image panel and a paint panel. So I had to go to the image panel first, and I just clicked add. I made it 2048 for both settings and hit OK, and then over at the paint panel we can go into the paint settings. And it looks like we got a brush setting here. Whew. Alright, sweet mama, look at this. So he did put cracks back in. I asked him to put cracks back in. I was like, that's so amazing. And now he's got cracks too. Okay. And leakage. I'm not going to go over these one by one. I'm going straight to cracks too. I just can't take it. Alright, so what we're going to do, we've got black and black here. I'm going to choose nice bright orange. Oh. Oh man, that's nice. I really like that. Look how that looks. Now that sounds weird, but look how that looks. And then here's the original cracks with white over it. I mean, that's enough for me. I'm already sold. So anyways, we're going to play around with these things. This is just like a little beta test video. We've got quite a few. You could finish that. Wow, see, that's really cool. I knew he was going to do something with the brush manager. Now, the combination of these, I can already see it. This, you got a gradient and everything in here. This is going to be big. You can draw a line, so that means you could probably pull the gradients out as well. Let me see if I go up here. Add a custom layer. We'll call it paint. I'll go new. It's already at 2048. Hit OK. And that should pull up the body. Is it going to come back or is it going to stay white? Okay, Blender is stopped. Alright, that's good. Man, that eye looks really good. Okay, so now we can start painting here. Can bring the opacity back just a little bit if you want to bring back what you had. So just remember that, your opacity sliders, intensity, blah, blah, blah. So now I can go to the paint panel and a seam. Okay, so I gotta figure some of these out. I haven't figured them all out yet, but I'm gonna come back from this tutorial. Just want to kind of give everybody a little teaser. I really can't wait to go through all of this. So, oh, so I clicked finish by accident. Okay, so we'll keep going here for a minute. All right, that's sick. That is something I haven't done since Substance Painter. I'm just gonna let you know right now, and that is so precise. I think you could play around with like the scale. Yeah, you can play around with the scale of this, and there's a lot to be figured out, but I'm already very hooked. And so the brush manager here has got a ton of stuff. Look at this. I am loving it. So let's get this more pronounced so you can see what's actually going on. Is that my splatter brush? It's kind of like an advanced version of my splatter brush that I had from him in the beginning. I can't wait. Alright, so we've got a linear gradient and we've got a radial gradient. Oh! Okay, so that's pretty cool. So I just put an entire gradient across this thing. Check back again, guys. I'm going to play around with this thing. I don't want to just sit here and kind of like putz around and not have the entire knowledge of it, but you can see what's going on. This is going to be big. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.